Salutations and greetings, my friend. So, what's on the agenda for today? Autism. Yeah, the tism. I was planning to do this video for a while now, and I did a poll on which video would you like to see first of some I had planned, and this is what you voted for, and this is kind of what I was expecting, to be honest. In this video, I'm not going to be focusing on the correlation between autism and gender dysphoria. If you're new to this channel, then you probably don't know it. I'm a detransitioner myself. And if you like to hear more about the connection between autism and gender dysphoria, you can watch my video with Richie Heron. It'll be here. Click on the card, you might want to watch it. But today I want to focus on something different. I want to focus on misconceptions, myths about autism that people have, opinions that they hold that might not necessarily be correct. So why not share my opinion as someone who has been diagnosed with autism almost 10 years ago, actually. And you know, back then the diagnosis I received was called Asperger. And you know, now we have autism and Asperger unified into one specific diagnosis, right? ASD, Autism Spectrum Disorder. I don't really like it, to be honest. I think that, yeah, sure. At its core, Asperger's and autism are kind of the same. Well, the difference is the severity. So, I don't always like to say that I'm autistic because it says very little about it, right? If I say that I have Asperger's, it actually describes more precisely what my condition is. Even though I don't really like calling it a condition. It is sort of, but well, there's some advantages to having that as well, and some disadvantages, right? I think we are just wired differently from neurotypical people. And this brings me to the first misconception people have about autism or Asperger in general. And whenever I tell someone that I have Asperger's or autism, they find it really hard to believe that, and we say that, no, I have this cousin, you know, the little cousin, he has Asperger, he has autism, and you're nothing like him. And you know why I didn't like this comment? Because it proposes the idea that everyone with autism or Asperger is the same. The truth is, we are not all the same, and we are affected by autism in different ways. Some of us don't even share the same symptoms. You know, I might have a friend or partner or someone who also has autism, and we might not possess the same symptoms or traits of autism. You know, there's a variety of different symptoms. I'll leave a link in the description to all the possible symptoms of autism. You know, you don't have to possess all of those symptoms to be qualified for autism, and that is the case with most diagnoses. You just need to meet a certain criteria. Another common misconception, maybe not this common right now, because I really haven't been hearing this in like many years, but around the time when I first got diagnosed with Asperger, and even before that, you know, I've heard so many people saying that autistic people have no empathy. They are unable to empathize with another person. This one always hurt, to be honest, because I've always been a very empathetic person, you know. Well, truth be told, I did develop my empathy kind of late, to be honest. Perhaps at the age of 6, something like that. Before that, I had no idea that it would hurt someone if I hit them or bite them or anything like that. And you know, that is the case for babies. you probably had, if you're a mother, your father, you probably had your baby, pull your hair, or hit you, or scratch you, or do something with you, or even laughed at it after it happened, right? They do not consider you as a living person with their feelings and ability to experience physical or emotional pain. You need a certain level of maturity, and that is one of the first early ways a human brain matures, to develop this sort of empathy. And it is a necessary skill to develop, because how else are you going to play with your peers? How are you else you're going to play with kids of your age, whether in a sandbox at kindergarten, with your neighbors' kids, or whatever? Well, for me, that didn't develop until 6 years old. So I had no interest in playing with kids at all, to be honest. I had my parents, and I guess I've seen them as providers of food and protection in a way. And that was all there was. I didn't really feel any emotional connection to my parents when I was a kid. And we developed that much later than most kids, but that does not mean that we do not develop it at all. And I think that's where this whole myth that autistic people are incapable of feeling empathy is coming from. So for some reason, people think we sort of carry those traits into our adulthood, which is not the case for most people. We are not antisocial, we are not psychopaths by any means. We do feel empathy for others. I think in a lot of cases, with people on the spectrum, it can be harder to express their feelings, Hello everyone, I'm just sitting here and editing this video when I've noticed that I forgot to mention something really important, and that is that for a lot of people on the spectrum, or well, most of us, it's not just the ability to express our feelings in normal ways that may be affected, but also the ability to read other people's feelings and intentions. And for that reason, sometimes we may be blind to other people's emotional needs, unless people are able to communicate those emotional needs in a very direct way. I'm not that good at reading other people's body language, to be honest, even though I'm obsessed with people's body language, because being a little face blind, I identify people by how they move, how they smell, what they wear, and what their haircut is like. So body language is super important for me. How people move, how they walk, what they do with their hands, or some facial expressions. But all they are to me is just an identifying factor. What someone is trying to express with that goes unnoticed, to be honest. Like, I know what it is, and I can even imitate, certain expressions, but the meaning behind them, that, the emotional depth behind them is lost for me. It's lost in translation. And I think this doctor actually explains it in a really good way. So I'll just show you the clip.
Recognise facial expressions and body language and other cues like tone of voice. And they also find it difficult to show and manage their own emotions, understand and respond to other people's emotions, or else respond in a different way to neurotypical children. And this is why it might be seen that they lack empathy. But this is all cognitive empathy. Now, affective or emotional empathy is where somebody has an emotional response to somebody else's mental state. And this is the same in autistic and neurotypical people. Autistic people care about how people are thinking and feeling and have got warmth, compassion and concern for other people.
Or we might express them in different ways, which might seem like we don't care. And I remember this woman. She was I don't want to disclose too much, but she was a mother of someone I knew. she told me a very personal story, and my reaction was to just leave the room and say nothing. And at that time, that was my way of expressing that, you know what, I felt affected by hearing it. So I needed some alone time. She interpreted it as me being rude and dismissing his story altogether. But you know, looking back at it, it is not something I would do now, you know, because we learn from experience, or at least I do, for sure. And that brings me to another point. It's that we are unable to develop social skills or language skills. It is especially concerning when therapists, psychologists actually believe that, you know, where they just assume that we are stuck in this position where we are unable to develop those social skills or to understand metaphors. Last therapist I talked to was super surprised that I was able to understand metaphors, or were even using metaphors as I was speaking. And you know, it's almost condescending in some way. Well, not almost, it is condescending, because it assumes that we are not able to learn, that it is a sort of learning disability. And sure, there might be some overlap between autism and learning disabilities, for sure. But I think, you know, a lot of us are perfectly capable of developing those social skills and those language skills. You know, I don't think metaphors are hard to learn. They might be hard to understand when you hear it for the first time, you know. I think our brains operate differently in that way. But once you learn a metaphor and what it means, it's not like, oh, suddenly I can't understand it. Like, nope, there's just no way it's getting through my thick skull. No, you can learn those skills, and you can actually learn how people expect you to react in a social setting, and you learn from that, right? It's just, for us, it takes perhaps a little more than someone who it comes to naturally for you through interactions and when you're growing up. To us, we need to put a little more effort into that, into understanding how am I supposed to act in certain situations. And you know what? Even now that I'm in my 30s now, I still act kind of awkwardly in certain social situations, or sometimes will say something inappropriate. And you know what? I stopped caring at some point, to be honest. I think, you know, a lot of us are pretty good at masking our autistic traits to appear normal, you could say. And it can be exhausting, to be honest. I think a lot of people who have Asperger autism will relate to that, right? It's exhausting to be constantly interacting with people, how they expect us to interact, how they expect us to act, and saying things they expect us to say. And for some autistic people, or even most, I would say, it doesn't come as naturally. You know, what might come to us naturally might be something completely different what you expect. But we do have the ability to adapt, you know. That's how we fit in, you know. And truth be told, it's that, you know, if you want to achieve something in this society, you have to mask those traits. The world is built for neurotypical people, you know. The world is not built for neurodivergence. And I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing, you know. We are a small minority. I don't think the world should be bending to us. I mean, sure, I think, you know, we should implement some things to make things for neurodivergent people easier, but I don't think the world should be built specifically for us. And another example of precisely what I was talking about, is expectation of how you should act, is eye contact, right? And I became better at it, to be honest. And It's funny because it's easier for me to keep an eye contact with a camera than with a person. And when I'm interacting with a person, I have to constantly remind myself that, okay, maybe I should look at them now. How long should I look at them? Should I stare them in the eyes, or should I look away now? Good advice, it helps to just focus on the middle of their face, which is usually their nose, unless your nose is so crooked that it's somewhere here. And again, it helps. It definitely helps. But one thing that really, really annoyed me is that when people think that people who don't hold eye contact are lying. It's... My grandma used to say that to me, like, I never trust anyone who doesn't look me in the eyes. I know they're lying. And, you know, if you happen to be on the spectrum, it's quite unfortunate because you're probably going to have a much harder time keeping that eye contact, right? And it doesn't mean you lie, but it was definitely a cultural thing where I grew up. Imagine you've been asked something and they want you to give you an honest answer to reply. Imagine situation, you're a kid and either your parents or your teachers are accusing you of doing something you haven't done. And I think most of us have had this experience in our childhood where we were absolutely innocent, but they accused us of being little shitbags who did something, right? And then you want to give an honest answer, but you won't look them in the eye, right? Like, you might look down, and there's this assumption, if I won't look you in the eye when I'm telling you the truth there, then I'm lying. Another issue I often had is that whenever someone accuses me of lying, I start laughing, and it's sort of an uncontrollable sort of laughter. If you watch The Joker, the film, and you know the sort of pathological laughter that happens there, I experience that when people accuse me of lying, and I just can't stop laughing. And while I'm laughing, I'm trying to tell you what's going on. And that just doesn't make you sound very believable, right? But I really can't help myself whenever I'm accused of lying, like by someone who's in front of me. It's different. I don't experience that when it's happening online, but if someone, like in real life, in person, tells me that I'm lying, I'll start laughing, and I will tell you the truth, but I'll laugh while doing that, and telling you the truth through laughter. Another interesting thing I've noticed that a lot of people seem to believe is that all autistic people are introverted. And it's weird because I definitely consider myself a very extroverted person. I love talking. I talk a lot. I'm constantly on the lookout for someone I can talk to. If I don't do that, I talk to myself. And in a way, I love making those videos because this allows me to have a good excuse to just keep talking and talking and talking. And I think everyone who knows me knows that I never shut up. My family absolutely hates me for it. No, they don't. They don't actually hate me. But they certainly can be a bit annoying by how much I talk. Because me visiting my family means I'll just keep talking and talking and talking, and they're not that interested in listening. And it's interesting because I think honestly that we should start distinguishing between introverted autism and extroverted autism, because they are quite different, and we accept it already in certain other mental conditions such as personality disorders like borderline. We have this expectation that everyone with borderline sort of expresses intense anger towards others, right? You have this switch between idealizing someone and absolutely despising them. And in that sense, people who are borderline can be unpredictable and intense. But it plays out differently in someone who's more introverted in that sense. They might be directing it more towards themselves and all this emotional build-up. And I think sort of an emotional build-up and how we deal with it is something that borderline personality disorder and autism absolutely have in common. There's definitely some overlap there, but a very introverted person with borderline personality disorder will direct that to themselves in a quiet way that you might not necessarily observe, in purely behavioral processes. And a lot of the time, when we're talking about Asperger or autism, when we're talking about those traits and symptoms, we are mixing those introverted and extroverted symptoms into one specific diagnosis. And yeah, here's a list of things your child might be experiencing. But, it will play out very differently, whether you're an introvert or an extrovert. And it's weird to me that sometimes, traits such as loving to talk about your special interests are mixed with symptoms such as not knowing how to communicate or when to talk to people. And those are traits I don't relate to at all, You could say it's quite common in autistic people to not know when to join conversations, especially in a group setting. To me, I was always really good at interrupting people, to be honest. I once saw someone I knew and she was on a date, and I just sat down there between them and started talking about something,
Seems to know everything. Look what happened to the others. You didn't see it, Jeanette. It was...
I sort of stopped doing that. I no longer interrupt people, so if I hear someone in group setting talking about something I'm not interested in, I'll opt out, just because, out of respect, really. And it's, another example of how we can actually learn those social skills. But it's a natural reaction for me to, if someone talks about something that bores me, screw that, we're talking about something I enjoy. And boom, jumping right in. I don't have a hard time starting conversations. I will talk to anyone. If I'm in a lift with someone, I'll start talking to them, If I'm waiting in a queue to use the loo at a pub or something, I'll chat up people, Just, hey, do you come here often? But I have a hard time ending conversations, to be honest. When someone says goodbye, I'll just continue talking, to be honest. I'll do that. I do that quite a lot. We're like, okay, we're done. yeah, but wait, hold on. There's one more thing we need to talk about. I loved talking to people since I was a kid, and I think I can be a little blind to knowing whether someone is interested in what I want to talk about. I think it's quite common, to be honest, among those more extroverted autistic people. To just, we love talking about things that interest us. And it's like one of the best things ever, to be honest. Just talk about something that interests me. And just keep talking and talking and talking. And I have this tendency to ignore what the other person actually wants to talk about. And I definitely got better at it over the years. It's not like I'm only talking about metaphysics or philosophy of technology. But yeah, if it was up to me, trust me, I would never feel a need to talk about anything else, you know. Speaking of, you know, those specific special interests, they are definitely quite common in people with autism. Like, we have a tendency to obsess pretty intensely over specific topics, and you know, I think in more severe cases, they might be things like statistics or train schedule. That's the most stereotypical one, you know, like autistic people in trains. What's with that, to be honest? I've never met an autistic person who would be like really into trains or train schedules. I never in my life met anyone like that, but somehow almost every like paper and article I used to read about autism back in the day, around the time when I received a diagnosis, I've read about autistic people in trains. Absolutely crazy. I don't know. I'm not really into trains, to be honest, or vehicles at all. They just don't really interest me. I'm not even into cars.
The most often is I like to lean over his fender and across his hood and do little things like that, and kind of press up against him and rub against him like that.
I definitely have a thing for boats. However, you know, I really don't think all of us, or even most of us, have those weird specific interests. From what I've noticed, and I have met a lot of people on the spectrum throughout the years, we have very eclectic interests. It's not like we just like one specific thing, you know. Even with me, my interests are pretty eclectic, you know. I'm into philosophy of technology, ontology, philosophy of physics. I'm definitely into philosophy of mind. I'm definitely into modality, metaphysics in general, ethics a little bit, you know, music, old films, video games, science in general, history. Yeah, so it's not like I just like one specific thing, and it's a huge myth, right? Like how we are usually represented either in media is that we know absolutely nothing about life, we know absolutely nothing about people, and we are completely not interested in any discipline out there. Just this one specific thing that we are really gifted at, you know, whether it's a specific artistic talent, and I mean artistic, not autistic, although, you know, well, what's the difference really? And people actually believe that, or that we are math geniuses, or can memorize long sections of numbers, but otherwise we're not good at anything else. Just this one thing where you're a genius at, and you suck at everything, but you compensate in one particular field. And yeah, I've met some professors who would certainly fall closer to that category, but I don't think there's almost anyone who is 100% correctly described by this. Like, you know, I think people like Rain Man, for example, I think that's probably one of the most popular representations of autistic people in popular media, in film.
Good morning. Coffee?
Yes, that'd be good.
Sally Dibbs, Sally. 461-0192.
How did you know my phone number?
How'd you know that?
You said read the telephone book last night. Dibbs, Sally. 461-0192.
He remembers things, little things sometimes.
Very clever, boys. I'll be right back.
How'd you do that? How'd you do that?
I don't know.
You memorized the whole book?
No.
You start from the beginning?
Yeah.
How far did you get?
G.
G?
G. God's sake. William Marsh. God's sake.
You memorized to G.
Yeah, G.
Unfortunately, it created sort of an expectation to what an autistic person is like or should be like. And you know, no wonder that people think, oh no, you can't be autistic when they hear you saying that you are, because they have this deep misunderstanding of what being autistic actually means, you know. And there's a huge overlap between someone who's autistic and someone who's not autistic. We have more things in common than there are things that we do not share, right? I mean, think about it. Think of like you and a person with anxiety. Like, let's assume you do not have anxiety, the person sitting next to you has anxiety. Well, the truth is you have much more in common in your human experience in general than you don't. You know, they just might have some additional specific qualitative experiences associated with their anxiety, but outside of it, you know, they're not that different from you. And from what I've noticed, I think, well, we are more like you than we are less like you, to be honest. I think there's another overlap between autism and Tourette's. I think, you know, we have certain tics. I think most people with autism do, and for me it's definitely my hair. And I get a lot of those comments on YouTube where people say I should stop touching my hair every 10 seconds. Now I'm doing more of it now that I'm talking about it, and I'm really yeah, conscious about it. Okay, now I can't fucking stop now. And or tell me I should cut my hair. It's not going to change anything. You see, if I had like really short hair, what I will be doing is this constantly. If I had something in my hair, I will be playing with it. I have to. It's just impossible for me to not be touching my hair. It's like, you know who Slavoj Žižek is? The philosopher, the Hegelian philosopher. You know, have you ever noticed what he's doing with his nose? Like, talking and just...
So, this aspect of self-controlling, that you stage a certain image of yourself, this doesn't bother me with online dating, no? I even think, now I will, if you allow me, conclude with another paradox. It would be so interesting to demonstrate how.
Yeah, it's something like that. To me, the hair is what the nose is to Slavoj Žižek. And I mean, I wish I could do something with that. And I'm sorry if it's annoying you. I'm really sorry. I'm apologizing for that. But I can't just stop touching my hair. It's like forcing yourself to hold that thought inside of you. Even though it's ripping you apart, you have to let it out, right? It's impossible. And most of the time, I'm not even aware that I'm doing that. And once I become aware, I actually do more of it. And you know, the problem is that after I've seen multiple of those comments, there's people saying that I should stop touching my hair, I become more self-aware of that when I'm making those videos. So I'm trying more and more not to touch it, but because I'm more self-aware of it, I do it more often than if it was completely unconscious, you know. So it will only make things worse if you continue talking about it. Unfortunately, so do me a favor and just drop it. Just drop it, because it's not going to help. Trust me. But yeah, back to the topic at hand. Regarding, you know, those special interests, there's and like example with Rain Man. Yeah, not all of us are math geniuses. Most are not, to be honest, and I'm not that good at mathematics either. I'm not completely bad at it. I did pretty good at school, but it's not like I'm a math genius or anything like that. I would say I'm pretty average when it comes to mathematics, you know. It's not my main interest by any means. I'm definitely into philosophy first and foremost. And, you know, when people say autism, they mention big names, you know, like Einstein or Newton. Is there really any evidence that Newton was autistic? I doubt it, to be honest. But we have this tendency to drop big names of those geniuses when we're talking about Asperger or autism, and we consider, you know, that people with autism have very high IQ but very low EQ, and in most cases that is not completely the case, you know. I don't even think there is a correlation between autism and intelligence, considering I met some really smart people with autism for sure, but also met some really dumb people with autism, you know. And I don't know, I see that same spectrum of intelligence in people who are not autistic. I don't really see any difference, to be honest. I think the way autistic people have a tendency to use their intelligence might be a little different for sure. There's no denying that, or how it manifests itself. There might be a difference there, but I'm not buying into this whole myth that there's a correlation between autism and high IQ. I don't believe in it at all, to be honest. So, yeah, I will see you in the next video, and in the meantime, take good care of yourself and your autism, if you have it. So yeah, ciao.